Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the United Service Institution Strategic Dialogues, your one-stop shop for national defense and geopolitics. Today we will be covering the conflict in Gaza. For that we have Brigadier Rumel Dhaiya, who has been awarded with the prestigious Sena Medal and has 32 years of experience in the Indian Army. He was the defense attaché to Turkey, Syria and Lebanon and the Indian military training team in Bhutan. He also served with the Military Operations Directorate of the Indian Army and the Net Assessment Directorate at the Integrated Defence Staff. Brigadier Dhaiya is a graduate of the National Defence College and the Defence Services Staff College and was also was the proud recipient of the Sword of Honour and Gold Medal at the Indian Military Academy at the time of his commissioning. So without much further ado, let's get into it. Brigadier Dhaiya, I won't be getting into the basics of the conflict in Gaza because I think enough has been spoken about that. So I'll ask a question. What are the potential implications of the conflict for neighboring countries and the broader international community, especially in terms of the economic, political and security repercussions?
Thank you, Nayak. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Any conflict brings in a lot of implications for not only those who are participating in the conflict or are part of the conflict, but also others because of the collateral damage that they cause. And we are in particularly difficult times, starting with the pandemic in 2019-20, thereafter followed by the war in Ukraine, and now all of a sudden with this war in Gaza, which was primarily, I think, on the part of Hamas, was an effort to bring the Palestinian issue up front since Abraham Accords had made it easy for Israel to make peace with the neighboring countries, and it seems that the Palestinian issue was being forgotten by everybody. So this conflict in Gaza has now, I think, upset the apple cart for every country, not only those who are involved in this, but even those who are outside the region. Let's start with the Palestinians themselves. The number of casualties, I think about more than 32,000 by the last count, is a horrendous waste of life and the kind of destruction that has been caused in Gaza now is also, beyond human comprehension. This kind of destruction has been caused in major wars like the Second World War, etc. The displacement of people and the effect on the psyche of the people that is going to have is going to determine insecurity for Israel also, not only the security. I don't see any reason why they'll feel more secure thereafter. They'll feel more insecure thereafter. But it's also true that the world has again started talking of two-state solution.
Yes, sir.
And it's possible that if the hardline government in Israel is voted out in the next elections, although at this particular moment, I think everybody in Israel wants destruction of Hamas. And physically, actually, they can cause a lot of damage to Hamas and literally decapacitate them. But this idea of resistance will not go away. So the larger implication for Israel and Palestinians is that the conflict will carry on. It will become a never-ending kind of a situation unless sagacity and wisdom prevails and a two-state solution is arrived at. So that is as far as they are concerned. Hezbollah has tried to keep away from this, out of this conflict, but as things go, any trigger from any side, if Israelis miscalculate or if Hezbollah miscalculates, then the whole wider region will become part of this confederation. Houthis coming in as proxies of Iran, some people say. They have already created problems for the shipping through the Suez Canal. They have launched strikes against international shipping, leaving aside Russian and Chinese ships, of course. But they also launched strikes against Israel. Now, Israel is militarily much more powerful than any of its neighbors, but at the same time, it can't cope up with fire all around it.
Yes, sir.
So, Also, the Abraham Accords had given them greater kind of comfort that they were integrating into the region without conflict, but all that will now become a secondary issue. Having said that, let me also say that the neighboring countries, Arab countries, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Jordan, and all these countries, they do not have sort of any inclination to get involved into the conflict themselves, because they find that they have nothing to gain out of it.
Yes, sir.
However, if the wider war starts, then of course all of them will be affected, the energy flows will be affected, the supply chains will be disrupted, and they will have to take strong political positions against Israel, because the emotions on the street today are against Israel. And the governments are trying to keep keep a lid over those emotions, but at some stage, if this conflict becomes wider, then there will be huge amount of problems. And this indirect effect will also be on the war in Ukraine. For example, Europe and USA will not be able to support Ukraine to the extent that they've been supporting
them till now.
Till yesterday.
Yes.
Today, of course, there is a problem. There is a hiatus over there that aid is not flowing to the extent that they wanted. But tomorrow it will be much worse in case this problem over here arises. Now, I would make a specific mention of Egypt here. They get about $9 billion worth of revenue from Suez Canal. And in last couple of months now, after the Houthis started attacking the shipping, this revenue from Suez Canal has gone down. And Egypt, having already accumulated huge amount of debt because of poor economic situation over last 10 years, today had to go to IMF for a $6 billion loan, another $5 billion loan from EU.
Okay.
So it's becoming, the economic situation of Egypt is becoming precarious. Lebanon, in any case, is in a very poor economic state, and so is Syria.
Yes, sir.
Jordan has had to cancel its energy versus water exchange deal with Israel. So all told, I think it's going to have an adverse impact on the economy of the region, but even otherwise, the shipping costs for the entire world will go up.
Because the ships are now going
Exactly,
to the Cape of
going
Good
to
Hope.
Cape of Good Hope.
Yes, sir.
So it's not only that this region is going to suffer economically, but the whole world as a whole. As far as geopolitics is concerned, I think the normalization of relations between the Arab states and Israel has to pause for the moment. Nobody is writing off this normalization. This normalization may take place subsequently, but it has become much harder today. Saudi Arabia was the key player in the whole system. If Saudi Arabia had normalized relations with Israel, then I think all others remaining states would have also followed the same lead. But today it is becoming very difficult for Saudi Arabia to actually reconcile with Israel. As it is, they were wanting adequate concessions from Israel on the Palestinian issue. Today, neither Israel is ready to make any concessions,
Yes, sir.
nor Saudi Arabia will be content with what Israel can offer. So therefore, I think the chances of instability in the region have increased rather than decreased.
Yes, sir.
And even Iran, for example, although it is supporting its proxies, which is expected, but has, of course, tried not to get directly involved into the conflict. Hezbollah has also tried to not get directly involved in the conflict, despite the provocations from either side, minor provocations from either side. So I think this conflict is bad for the world, very bad for the region, and at the same time, Netanyahu probably thinks that he can ride out the criticism in the world, he can ride out criticism from the Democrats in the US, and wait till hope that Trump comes to power in the elections in November, when the Americans will continue supporting Israel. So overall, I think the prognosis is not great, and I hope this, as our country has suggested, that ceasefire takes place early, is enforced early, and aid to the civilian people the civilian population that is suffering. Aid is delivered in time, and a two-state solution. Serious effort is made to come to some solution based on the two-state solution.
So you, in the earlier half of your answer, you mentioned the two-state solution. Now, the two-state solution is very popular in the media as well as on social media, that it is something which can be used to reduce the tensions in the region and lead to a long-lasting peace. However, do you think that the two-state solution is going to work?
Well, if there is sincerity on part of the Israelis and also, of course, on the part of the Palestinians, two-state solution is the only solution that can bring peace to the region. While having said that, it's a difficult proposition. Why? Because Israel, right from the beginning, when these things started, including Camp David and subsequently Oslo Accords, and when Bill Clinton was involved in the whole process, I think the only one serious attempt from Israeli side was also when Ehud Barak agreed on advancing this two-state solution. But even at that time, my understanding is that the Israeli establishment was trying to undercut that resolution, that agreement, by trying to put settlements in a way that contiguous Palestinian state was not going to be sort of accepted to Israel. So although the Israelis, their propaganda machine always try to say that it is the Palestinians who have been not interested in a two-state solution, my understanding is that the Israelis have really not been interested in a two-state solution. Even today, the Israeli hardliners, the right wing and those Orthodox Jews in Israel, find no merit in a two-state solution. They would much rather like to have the entire Palestinian territory incorporated into Israeli state, but without the Palestinian population. So they would want this population to somehow shift out in some way or the other. So that's a statement of fact. People may not, I'm not putting it in nuances, I'm just stating the fact as I understand. So it's a difficult proposition, but let me just make it clear that Mr. Shimon Peres, for example, had realized this, Ehud Barak had realized this, that Palestinians also deserve a decent life. They also need to live in the area in which their forefathers had lived for thousands of years. And they just can't be made into somebody's burden without citizenship and without any land of their own to be called their own. They would realize that Israel's long-term security lies in a solution which also satisfied Palestinian aspirations besides the aspirations of the Jews in Israel.
Right. Understood. Brigadier Dhaiya, we've seen over the past few months that Hamas's general appeal among the Palestinians is rising. And what could be the likely orientation of the Palestinians? I mean, when we talk about, there are certain political commentators who saying speaking in a pro-Palestinian manner is not actually speaking in a pro-Hamas manner. So could you make that distinction a bit clear? And what could be the political outcomes that can be expected, especially in Israel, as you see that Prime Minister Netanyahu's appeal has gone down in the recent months?
Well, I think the situation being what it is, it's extremely difficult today to gauge who is popular and who is unpopular today, because there is no objective assessment that can be made based on people's choices or people's voices. I personally believe that Mr. Netanyahu should be a liked figure for the simple reason that 1,200 Israelis lost their lives. Also the fact that Mr. Netanyahu had, on previous occasions, have supported Hamas to undermine the authority of the Palestinian Authority, that is the Fatah faction which controls the West Bank. There are reports credible reports to this of this nature. Considering this and the fact that he has not been able to get the hostages out of Gaza, and some of the hostages have already died. So Mr. Netanyahu can't be popular in Israel at all. And I personally feel that people are tolerating him today till the conflict is on. And after the conflict is over, I think Mr. Netanyahu will have no choice but to leave power. Something that he wanted to continue for a long time, and all this political instability that was brought about in Israel for the last 2-3 years was a result of Mr. Netanyahu's desire to stay in power. So it's an irony that he'll have to probably go in a manner which he wouldn't have liked to go. That is one. As far as Palestinians are concerned, you see, the Fatah faction, after Mr. Arafat went off the scene, after he passed away, and Mr. Abbas became, boss of PA, Palestinian Authority has really been losing steam. They have been losing support from the people. The last election that they had about 15 years back, that time Hamas won the elections in Gaza Strip, yes, whereas Fatah won the elections in the West Bank. So ever since then, despite sporadic attempts at unification of these two factions and a unity government kind of a thing, these efforts have not succeeded. Partly because Hamas, being heartlanders and having taken active part in Intifada, has been banned by many countries, has been termed as a terrorist organization.
By the United Nations.
Not only United Nations, but many Western countries, for example, have termed Hamas as a terrorist organization. Fatah, on the other hand, has not been banned, sanctioned by anybody, or has not been named as terrorist organization. And Fatah gets support from UN, from USA, from European Union, and from many Arab countries. But what has happened is that the way they have made use of that money, the corruption is rife. The support that they should be giving to people in Gaza has not been forthcoming. Israeli settlers have been running amok in West Bank. So that even the people within the West Bank, which are under direct control of Fatah, have really been sufferers of the misrule of Fatah in that area. So and Fatah in any case is reduced to more of a municipal function over there. They have no control over security, they have no control over their own sort of offices or anything like that. So they are more of a caricature for an organization that runs a territory. Despite the fact that Mr. Abbas is still given head of state treatment by many countries. He went to China, he was treated like that. India has been, also have been treating him as a head of state, the Palestinian state. So overall, if you see, a very limited number of Palestinians who have direct vested interest in the system that has been going on are loyal to Fatah presently. And most of the Palestinians, particularly because they were under severe restrictions by Israel and have been sanctioned, they have been, in fact, more favorably inclined towards Hamas. Now, that was before 7th of October. And many of the Palestinians still think that what Hamas did was an act of desperation. If they had not done that, Palestinians would have been forgotten by the world sooner or later. So if Hamas has some credibility today, it is because of this realization that what they did was to bring this Palestinian issue again to the notice of the world and to in a way force the world to think about a two-state solution. But if you look at the other fact, the 30,000 people lost, thousands under prison, in prisons, Israeli prisons, large number of people going hungry, children dying without treatment, even cancer patients being turned out of hospitals. All this misery that has been brought upon the people of Gaza, and even sometimes raids on people in the West Bank also. I think many people must be also thinking that Hamas shouldn't have done this. And they should have looked at other means to raise this issue rather than this terrorist act against Israeli civilians on 7th of October. So I don't think Hamas's popularity is rising as such, but Hamas is relevant, and despite the fact that many countries are making proposals of even uniting the political system in Gaza and West Bank and let Fatah faction then administer this combined entity. I don't think there are many takers for this amongst the Palestinians, and rightly so, because Fatah has no credibility at all. Hamas popularity increase or not can be debated, but there is no debate about Fatah's unpopularity in this particular scenario presently. Secondly, Israel doesn't want anything to do with combined entity. They would much rather like to deal with the settlers separately, with the West Bank separately, and in fact outsourcing it more to settlers to sort out the people in the West Bank. And as far as Gaza is concerned, I think they have made it very clear that they would like to have the Gaza territory divided in a manner which can be, from the security point of view, which can be controlled very easily. They, in fact, as a maximalist position, they wanted the Gaza population to be shifted out to the Egyptian desert, Sinai, so that then they can, completely take over Gaza and remodel it, reset the whole setup. But that, of course, is not possible because neither is Egypt nor Jordan are ready to take on additional number of Palestinians over there, and rightly so.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be, ultimately there will be a ceasefire someday.
Yes.
Ultimately there will be exchange of prisoners someday. But by then the bitterness would have increased to the level that security will become a casualty in the long run.
So we know that Hamas is a democratically elected party, and the last election, the election which they got elected was in the Northeast. Would we see a change in the leadership of Palestine if the elections were to take place sometime soon, assuming, of course, the current iteration of the conflict comes to an end?
Well, I think if the elections are, first of all, to hold elections in a situation that we are in today is extremely difficult.
Yes, sir.
There has to be peace and calm, and people have to go back to their homes, and their basic necessities have to be, the civic amenities have to be restored. Now, all that is going to take huge amount of time, a very long time. It's going to take a couple of years maybe, and that's the best estimate. It's only after that somebody can think about elections. Now, if our experience tells us something, last time when Hamas won the elections comprehensively in Gaza Strip, the democratic outcome was not really accepted by many countries, including some of those Arab countries. I do not think they are ready.
So was it a situation like Pakistan's most recent election?
You see, unlike Pakistan, where there is army that decides who should fight elections, who should win, and who should form the government. In Palestine, there is no such organization. There is no such overarching authority that can decide. So it's people who are going to decide if an election is held and they are given the freedom to vote. But I think everybody understands today that because of Fatah's unpopularity, Hamas will be the only organization that will win people's votes in elections that are held. And this is not acceptable to the stakeholders. It wasn't acceptable in 2007. It is not going to be acceptable hereafter.
Yes.
So, as it is, that elections can only take place when there is a certain amount of calm and stability.
Yes, sir.
To bring about that calm and stability within the Palestinian territories is a long-term affair. And I don't foresee any elections taking place over there.
Sir, we have seen in the past that the conflicts such as the one in Gaza right now have a large amount of geopolitical and regional implications. In 2021, when the military junta came to were rebelled, India's Act East policy has essentially stalled because of that. So, how does the current Middle East crisis impact India's geopolitical interests, especially considering the IMEC corridor?
India, Middle East, Europe Economic Cooperation is a very major initiative which was aimed to not only make the trade more efficient, but to economically integrate India with the Middle East and Europe. Also to make supply chains more robust, bring in high-speed data connectivity into being, and also give a fillip to renewable energy initiatives that will have an impact on climate change. As you know, that there was supposed to be energy pipelines, there's supposed to be undersea electricity grid connection, and there was supposed to be high-speed data connectivity, which would have, of course, done away with all these threats to undersea cables that run through Red Sea and Arabian Sea. So it was an extremely major, very big initiative, and if it had to go through and implemented quickly, then India's trade and economic relationship with a large number of countries would have gone up. But that was not to be, of course. It stands delayed, obviously, because some of the countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE will not like to be seen as participating with Israel in this initiative. And Haifa port of Israel was an important transit point. So there is an impact over there. Having said that, the project is not dead. There are many critics, of course, like President Erdogan of Turkey criticized it right away because he thought that Turkey was left out, and thereafter he started talking about the development access through Iraq, the Great Fall port, and going through Baghdad and beyond, right up to Turkey. So he's talked about it, but I don't think any of those initiatives would be a major problem. It's also true that should IMEC be implemented, there will be an impact on the Suez Canal. There will be lesser number of, the Department of Shipping through Suez Canal will go down. But that's a long-term issue, and it's quite possible that overall trade, global trade might increase, and Suez Canal continues to carry that same kind of cargo, and this becomes an additional. So I think there is going to be an impact, but as far as India's relationship with the region is concerned, they are not going to be affected very adversely because of this. We initially, and the first instantaneous reaction was to show solidarity with Israel, and that is because of our deeply held belief that terrorism is not good for anybody, and terrorism cannot be, nothing can justify terrorism against innocent civilians. Since we have been victims of terrorism for many, many decades, it was absolutely natural and very, very, what Rash can say, natural for us to condemn terrorism perpetrated by Hamas. But thereafter, we have made our position very clear. We believe in two-state solution. We won't cease fire immediately, and we want maximum amount of relief to be given to the people who have suffered the consequences of this conflict. So our position is very nuanced, and I think this nuanced position has been very well appreciated by everybody in the region and beyond. We have been very clear with regard to our position on the Ukrainian conflict. We have been very clear about our position with regard to the conflict in Gaza. Our voice is now heard because it's a voice of reason. It's based on solid logic, and I think we have been able to convey to the world that instead of being just preachers to the world, whatever positions we are taking, they are not only in line with long-held Indian positions, but also they serve India's national interests, not only immediate but long-term interests.
So, Brigadier, we've seen that since 2014, India has been working very hard to maintain ties and create new ties with the Middle East countries, especially the ones in the Gulf Cooperation Council. So, the current conflict, the Israel-Hamas conflict, has created an atmosphere which has destabilized the region to a large extent, and it has
it has shown us that the peace was fragile to begin with. So what are your opinions as to what India needs to do going forward to ensure that India's strategic interests are maintained and not lost and are not shot in the knee, so as to say, whenever such any conflict like this happens in the Middle East? Because we know for sure that these skirmishes are going to continue on and off for a long time.
You see, some people have talked about India's position being neutral in the region, and some people have even, in fact, gone to the extent of saying that India doesn't take sides. My personal impression is that for a very, very long time, India's position on various issues in the Gulf have been based on India's national interests. We have concerns in that area, we have interests in that area. Energy security is one thing that we can never really ignore. We also must understand that close to 7 million people of Indian origin are presently working in this region. This is our proximate neighborhood. Starting from the north, if we do not have good relations with Iran, then we are absolutely cut off from Central Asian republics, CARs, and Afghanistan. We can't afford to do that. So we have to have good relations with Iran. Iran is also our neighbor. Iran is also a potential supplier of high volumes of energy, oil and gas. So therefore, we cannot sort of forget about our historical, cultural, and deep-seated economic relationship with Iran. Similarly with the UAE, I mean, the very fact that our Prime Minister in less than 10 years has made 7 visits to UAE, and UAE head of state has made a number of visits to India, goes on to suggest as to how intertwined our relationship and how important our relationship is.
So, Brigadier Dhaiya, last question before I let you go. How has this conflict affected India's alliances in the region?
Well, as you know that we are not part of any alliance as such. We don't believe in alliances, but we believe in good relationship with every country.
Yes.
And particularly with West Asian countries, because we have interests with each one of them. We have relationship with Iran, which many countries do not like, particularly America and Israel. But Iran provides us an opportunity to have our economic engagement with Central Asian republics. Without Iran being there would be a problem. With Afghanistan, for example, Iran is a potential source of huge amount of energy, oil and gas, and Iran has been our historical partner and neighbor. We cannot do without Iran. And Iran is an important partner also for the security in the Gulf region. Similarly, with the Gulf monarchies, our relationship has been reasonably good in the recent past, but it's been historical. As you recall that even after independence, Indian rupee was legal tender in most of these Gulf countries. Yes. There have been trading relationship. There have been, Islam has come from the Gulf to us. Yes. So therefore, what has happened is that our relationship has been very comprehensive, very good, but this relationship has been transformed over the last couple of years, of course. And as a simple example that I can give you, that our Prime Minister has been to UAE 7 times in less than 10 years. This was unprecedented because last time before that, Ms. Gandhi had gone there in something like 1981 or something. So this is the transformation that you see. Our relationship with Saudi Arabia has transformed quite a lot. Now we are not only economic partners, but we are partners in investments, we are partners in security. We work together in sharing intelligence about extremists, and many extremists, many of these terrorists have been moved to India from UAE and Saudi Arabia, have been extradited to us. And if IMEC comes through, then in any case, it will be a game changer event for us, not only because of relationship with the country, with the region, but also economically and security implications will also come in. So with Oman, we have had a defense partnership for a long time. We have access to Duqm port. Large number of Indian workers are there in Oman, and we have probably one of the closest relationship with any country with that region. Yemen is a problem area, but it's a problem area for everybody today. Otherwise, we have historical relations with Yemen. Egypt fully well understands. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has been to India 3 times in the last 3 years.
Yes.
They want to develop good relations with India. We are also very keen to develop relationship with them. We want to have a share in the new Suez Canal project that has been implemented now. We want to establish factories over there. There is a talk about extending some loan to Egypt, which will be repaid by them by fertilizers and gas.
Yes, sir.
Exchange fertilizer. So overall, if you see, our relationship with the region has been good. This particular conflict, initially there were apprehensions that they will, many people in this region will think that India's position is pro-Israel.
Yes, sir.
But 2 factors have really helped in removing those misapprehensions. One is that the position of most of the countries in the region, their own position is not much different than India's position.
Yes, sir.
And secondly, India's policy of not supporting Israel blindly, but being steadfast in their support to a 2-state solution, also for ceasefire, and also for providing relief to the Palestinians. As you know, that even during this conflict, we have been providing relief to Palestinians to the UN agencies. So our position is very well understood in the region presently. Although Israel is not very happy, won't be very happy with our continuing good relationship with Iran and our involvement in Jabhat and the international North-South transit corridor, transport corridor. But I think they also realize this, that for the sake of improving relationship with Israel, we cannot forsake our relationship with the country and the region. So our policy of not taking sides in conflicts among these countries, I think has served our interests well. We are not against any of these countries, but we are wanting to have good relations with everybody. And I think this conflict also, ultimately, the indirect effects, the collateral damage, so to say, in economic terms, is bound to be there to some extent. But I think overall, in terms of relationship with these countries, be it economic, diplomatic, or geopolitical, I don't see any negative impact on this conflict on our relationship with the region.
Yes.
I'd like to end today's discussion. Thank you, Brigadier Dhaiya, for enlightening us on the conflict class.
My pleasure. Thank you.